questions that were, I'm not sure where they came from, but they're all good. And we're going to start with Vivian and the other.
We're going to do the 19th.
Course correction, we're starting with the mayor. You have 45 seconds succinct. Okay, here we go. How do you plan to address the current economic challenges facing Winston-Salem and promote job growth in the community?
Thank you. I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing. We've got great results with job growth in our city. As I told you earlier, we've had the highest percentage job growth of any metro area in the southeast, except for Savannah and Birmingham. We are tied with Austin, Texas for that same percentage across the country over back in 2019 to 2020. We've got to do make sure we've got enough product here in our community to help these companies that want to expand here or come here. We've been so successful, we're about to run out of land. So that's one of our priorities, is get additional land ready to go.
Well, first of all, the 45 seconds, whew, that's nothing. Very quickly, this is the solution. The money that we have wasted, our tax dollars that we have put into everything else that you see here, instead of coming back to the people in the communities, guess what? We're going to redirect our tax dollars so that we can make sure that we put the people first and not the businesses. When I say businesses, I mean individuals who run these businesses, who are friends and comrades of these individuals, some of them who sit up here on this panel right now. So what we have to do is actually take our tax dollars, redirect them, reroute them, so that we can use them the way that we should. Whether it's education, whether it's jobs. 45 seconds out. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question.
The battery.
Do you have the other one? Thank you.
Thank you. I think the mayor has told you we have plenty of jobs coming to this town. Our community is a community that attracts jobs because of who we are and what it is. What we have is a problem with poverty in this community, and we must get on board to make sure our people here know where those jobs are and prepare them for those jobs. And that's, to me, is the biggest issue we are facing, that we have 40,000 households living in poverty. So we have to do a mind shift with those people to get them prepared to work for the wonderful jobs that are coming and that are already here.
So my thoughts on that also are, first thing is we have to understand that there are a lot of people who do not want to work. And one of the things that we have to do, particularly with the younger people, is we have to be real creative. And we have to really find ways to help them to understand the importance of employment. And oftentimes that's a serious task, but I think the most realistic thing to do at this stage is to start looking at jobs which are work from home or online, building your own programs. And those are the things that tend to interest younger people. So the previous way of doing things as far as growing jobs, we have to be a little more creative. So that would be one of the things that I would definitely be looking towards.
Good evening again, everyone. Happy Black History Month. So, the President of the United States signed an infrastructure bill 40% of those funds go to environmental justice issues, what we call EJ40, specific to certain census tracts. East Winston is in a large portion of one of those census tracts. I was told by an elected official that black people don't care about the environment. Well, as I mentioned, Happy Black History Month, right? The environmental justice initiatives, the environmental justice fight started in North Carolina, and it started with black people. And so if we're in census tracts, many of our communities, to go get funds, it's up to the city, it's up to the county, it's up to organizations to go after the funds that we're not necessarily going after because we're not looking at it through an environmental lens. Thank you.
I believe in intervention and prevention. Intervention is what needs to be done today. What needs to be done today is we use more of the city's resources in providing loans to create small businesses and also to create collective economics, to whereby groups of people can put businesses together to whereby they will reduce the liability. Now, as it relates to prevention, we need to focus on the education of our children to ensure that they're educated whereby they can get the jobs that are coming to our city, and especially those in the innovation quarter. We should also use what I call, excuse me, I had a little brain fog there, but we should also use community benefit agreements to whereby when development is being done in the community, those that are living in it get an opportunity to apprenticeships to whereby they can work in other areas. Thank you.
There's a lot been said, and I agree with a lot of it, and some of it I don't. But we've been growing the jobs since I've been on the council. Everybody knows that to attract businesses, you got to have great schools. You got to have great housing. You got to have public safety. You got to have quality of life and green spaces. One of the things that I believe that we need to do better is workforce training. We have initiatives in place with the state, the county, and the Fed, but we've got to be more proactive in training people for the jobs that are coming, not for jobs that are necessarily here. The data is already out there. And I, for one, again, wages. If you're not going to compensate people accordingly as to what their worth is, then the jobs, people won't go to work to those jobs.
It is true the city is bringing jobs to the area, but we need to make sure that the people who need those jobs can actually get to those jobs. So how do we do that? Job access and transportation can decrease poverty by 5%. You improve access to jobs and increase transit, rideshare, employee shuttles, and more. In addition to benefiting low-income workers, expanded transit access benefits employers by widening the work pool and making it easier for less costly to get to work helps families of all income levels. How can it be done? A 10% increase in public transit access to jobs requiring an associate degree or less would result in 3,670 newly accessible jobs. If 10% share of those newly accessible jobs would go to people living below poverty, this strategy could reduce the poverty gap in Winston-Salem by $11 million.
So as a business owner, I know the struggles of trying to get people to work for you that don't want to work. So that's the first problem. It's going to have to be dealt with. People don't want to work. So we have to come up with creative plans and creative ways to get people into the workforce, you know, make them as well as I am proud of their city and wanting to work and wanting to achieve new things. With the housing, affordable housing, that could be possible. So it's going to be more than one thing needed in order to make that a success.
I think that we're doing a great job attracting new businesses to come into Winston-Salem, but where we are failing the people, the citizens who live here, who are seeking jobs, who are seeking opportunities so that they can improve themselves and their quality of life and their way of living with their families. I told you I've laid the foundation for more to come. I have been successful in getting the support of my council members to allow the vendors market on Liberty Street to be transformed into a transformational center. And the same concept that I would have implemented at Hainslow Rents when I first got on council, will be the concept that I implement at the vendors market transformational center. We, at that location, will have opportunities for training individuals for different kinds of job opportunities, skill development, workforce training, becoming HVAC workers, electricians, masonry workers. So I have my stop sign, but the plan is already in place to help us, the citizens of Winston-Salem. We're doing a great job with people who don't live here.
Thank you.
I'm committed to working families, and I'm committed to helping those who are facing eviction, who are having landlord and tenant issues, retaliatory evictions. And I want to support affordable housing, particularly for those who are hurting and those who are closest to the pain. And those are people who are paying 40–50% of their income on housing. And we need to provide incentives for those for economic mobility, incentives for those to pay a living wage. We need a living wage to help out people with economic mobility that'll move them from crisis to self-sufficiency to thriving.
I think if we want to keep the jobs coming, we need to address affordable housing in a big way, which is why I'm advocating a municipal bond issue, similar to what was done in the city of Durham. It was the largest housing undertaking in North Carolina history. You can't do it unless you're willing to pass a big bond. It just won't happen. That's a real problem. Second, employers look at things like climate change. They look at to see whether they're doing something about it. There's very little happening about it right now here. Finally, and there are many other issues I could get into, law enforcement. We have a shortage of police officers, and we need to create an environment here where people want to go into law enforcement from the schools in our area. And that's really important. When we do that, we'll be better positioned to control crime.
Thank you. I think that this is a multi-layered response. Number one, we do need to support our small businesses. The city does have an Office of Business Inclusion and Advancement where they do have staff that are equipped to work with small business owners, from whether you decided to go to sleep one night and then woke up to become a small business owner, or whether you've been a small business owner for quite some time and you've struggled and need a little more assistance. I do think that the city can provide additional resources to small business owners and providing them with capital and resources that they need. I think that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. And I do think that we need to address some education issues, that although oftentimes that is put on the county, but I do think that there are things we could do together, and also addressing housing. If you don't have both of those working together, we're not going to get the jobs to come to Winston that we need.
Adrian Smith, South Ward. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I own a food manufacturing business and a retail fabric store. I also raised an investment fund that invests in Black and brown founders who are solving social determinants of health. So I kind of live entrepreneurship every day in Winston-Salem. I ran Flywheel Foundation for years, where we worked with startups and small businesses. I advised these companies one-on-one for many years. So I've got lots of ideas on specific policies and projects that the city can implement, and I would love to work with everybody at this table on implementing those.
Carolyn Heisman, South Ward. The issue with promoting job growth is major, and with the fact that we have a 20% poverty rate, and we have barriers to economic mobility and barriers to economic mobility and housing. And the only way that one of the ways to change that is you have to have a vigorous leadership for creating public and private partnerships, especially educating the workforce of our children in our public schools and in our Forsyth Tech and our local colleges. When you have middle school kids who are still reading at the 3rd and 4th grade level, they are not going to graduate as literate possible job seekers and job and employees for our small and medium businesses and our large businesses.
Vivian Joyner, South Ward. So as a small business owner, I know that there is a challenge to create more jobs, but we have a lot of jobs. We just don't have a lot of people in those jobs. So to the point of poverty, we need to get people at a livable wage, and then we need to have them in affordable housing. Not what that formula says, but true affordable housing, 30%, 35% of what your take home is, not 60 or 70%. That's how we keep jobs coming. That's how we keep people in the jobs that they have.
Thank you. We are now going to skip, for those keeping score, question number 2. I'll come back to it if I need to, but it's about affordable housing, and many of the candidates spoke to it. So we're going to jump to environmental sustainability. This is an issue becoming increasingly important. What steps will you take to make Winston-Salem a more environmentally friendly and sustainable city? And Vivian, we're going to start at your end and come all the way down here. Thank you.
Thank you. We need to start where we are. We need to basic things to really complicated things. Recycling, where does the recycle go? Sustainability in that way. There's a lot of solar panels that are going up. There needs to be more. If you build one of these big commercial buildings that have all this rooftop, there should be some solar panels up there. Get the developers, get the people coming into the community to help keep us sustainable in where we live.
Carolyn Highsmith, with environmental sustainability, we need to be providing incentives for our small and medium-sized and large businesses to become environmentally sustainable, as far as having solar panels on the roof, energy efficient appliances, etc. But more than anything, the city needs to be dealing with the infrastructure of climate change, where we are having stormwater drainage problems with people throughout the city because we don't have, we are not having upgraded all of our stormwater drainage regulations. Thank you.
Adrian Smith, South Ward. I am the top climate candidate in Winston-Salem. My number one priority is to transition all municipal operations to solar energy using the Inflation Reduction Act. We can save more than $750,000 a year in energy expenses while reducing our emissions, improving public health, and creating a huge marketing opportunity for the city. I've studied renewable energy in undergrad and grad school, and I've got an extensive list of policies and projects that I'd like to incorporate during my time on council. Thank you.
Thank you. Regina Hall, Northwest Ward. I think that we can use some of the staff that we already have in place. For example, Tiffany Oliva with the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs, being able to make sure that we get the latest information of what is coming down from the Environmental Protection Agency. Adrian talked about the Inflation Reduction Act. There's going to be millions of dollars to be able to come to the city of Winston-Salem for that. I think that City Council can do a job in working with developers, particularly ones who are interested in housing, to make sure incentives are given to them on the type of housing that they build, and making sure that they have environmentally friendly practices with that. I think the city has done a great job in being able to transition fleet over to electric vehicles. I know we'll be able to do more. My time is up, so I guess I have to pass it to Bob.
Thank you. I made a proposal along the way that we create a civilian conservation corps for the city. It's based on Roosevelt's CCC during the Depression to plant the urban forest. This is routine in other parts of the world. It's not in the United States yet. We can show that if we plant a lot of trees in the right places, the city's temperature actually drops. What we're doing now is destroying thousands and thousands of trees every year throughout Winston-Salem with all of the development we're enthusiastic about, which is great. But we could do that by restoring what we're losing at the same time we're doing this development. That is not happening right now. And we could put the urban forest and then destroy it elsewhere, and we ought to avoid that trap.
Hi, I'm Paula McCoy from Northeast Ward. I think some of the steps we can take is to promote renewable energy and provide incentives for that with solar panels and things like that. Partner with businesses and provide more grants to people to have solar energy. We can improve air quality and reduce air pollution from vehicles, as well as enhance our green spaces. We have beautiful green spaces, particularly in the Northeast Ward. We need to improve those and provide more recreations for our people, and then reduce waste. I think we do a good job in recycling. We need to continue that and make sure that all of our residents are part of that program. Thank you.
I think that we should continue many of the initiatives that we're already working on at the city, trying to change our fleet with more electric cars. I couldn't think of it. And I think we need to also offer incentives to businesses to be green. Offer incentives. I also think we need to leverage our digital technologies. We need to set decarbonization goals. That's my time. Thank you.
Okay, this is what I think. Okay, the solar panels and all that, it really does sound good, but is it affordable? So let's be realistic about it. What I think should happen is these new developments, you should come up with a plan. Let's go ahead and put solar panels on these houses now, so they're already ahead of the game. Those ones that are behind on the game, that needs them, we need to work together in order for everybody to be able to get the solar panels they need in order to save on energy, make their homes more energy efficient. And as far as like the cars, that's all great too, but is it affordable? Another thing we need to be realistic about. So, already? I normally don't even talk the whole time.
For this to work, we have to get our citizens involved. We have to teach our citizens how to conserve water, conserve energy, because there's more of them than businesses here. So if each house is saving on water, saving on electricity, then that will make a bigger footprint. So we should incentivize our citizens for their usage instead of increasing the sewage and water bill by 15%. So those are the things that we need to think about. How can we get every citizen involved, eager to do the right thing?
City of Winston-Salem established their Sustainability Commission in 2008. I was on that commission. Right now, we just hired a new sustainability director. As has already been stated, people think, and my Piedmont environmental folk, they know, that we can just go buy electric vehicles like that. It's called logistics. There are not enough of them being made, and we're not even prepared to get them all if they come. We have put in for them, but we won't be able to get them because of it's just not out there. They haven't built enough. We got solar panels going up on the Bryce Stewart building. We're gonna put solar panels on the Public Works building over off of, on the east side. But the thing is, like we said, if we ride around our communities and see all the trash that people are throwing out, believe it or not, that's environmental waste. If we're not willing to stop people or question people or even ourselves as to how much trash and waste we dump in our city, mattresses, plastic, bags, cars, tires. All I know is, like somebody already said, we got to get all of you on board. You know, sustainability and recycling costs money. That's why the city took back, and we now do the contract work, our employees, of picking up your recycling. I hope to move us to it where it talks about doing wet waste, compost. The leaves, y'all be mad when the leaves don't get picked up. You call everybody. You stand in line overnight like it's a concert to get your compost. Am I right? If we go to, no, I've been watching people speak and go over all night. And I'm going to take my little 5 or 10 minutes and accumulate it. All I'm asking you to do is think about ways that we can make this work together. It's not that we're not working on it. We're looking at all kinds of things as to how to make us more environmentally friendly in the city.
Thank you, Dee.
Well, I would first agree with everything that everyone up here is saying. Not too much more to add to it, but I will. What I would say is that it is actually the constituency, the citizens, that need to know about environmental sustainability. And when we don't provide in-community programs and opportunities for them to learn how they can become environmentally sound, then what we're doing is saying we'll get some new vehicles for the city, we'll create the mush and green spaces, while in the community they're doing, as Councilwoman Dee Adams said, throwing trash out, mattresses, and all sorts of things that are environmentally unsafe. So I believe we should reach the community and also implement the things that have been said up here. And while we talk about environmental, let's talk about a study being done at the airport as it relates to the pollution that's being emitted over the communities that the airplanes fly over.
As a civics and economic teacher, I used to always teach my students, every decision is an economic decision. And then I would have them try to dispute the point. Every decision is an economic decision. So coming back into the community, one of the big things that I found is every decision is an environmental decision. That's why I spoke about it in both of my first 2 times speaking. In November, I was the only person from the entire city of Winston-Salem at an event in Greensboro by the Southern Environmental Law Center that I know of, dealing with environmental justice. Our organization, Neighbor for Better Neighborhoods, is working with organizations like Power Up to form a hub, to join the hub that's already started in North Carolina, to deal with environmental justice. Northwood Estates, different communities that we work in, and I'll say this lastly, even when we started dealing with food insecurity, what we call food sovereignty, people started growing their own gardens, right? We went to test the soil, arsenic in the soil in communities like Boston-Durham. That's an environmental issue. And so even when you try to solve some of your other problems, you're still dealing with environmental issues that need to be fixed. When we lose a drought, we need to address the environment. Thank you.
Everybody's, spoke about some really good things. I think for me, everything starts with education and helping people to understand the importance of preserving the environment. And there's another part to it, which is the trust. When we talk about those cars, those electric vehicles, not many of us are at a point right now where we actually fully trust those, because those are not things that many people actually grew up on. So one of the things that we're going to have to do is help people to understand the importance of preserving the environment. That's one of the main things you have to do. There are a lot of us that are responsible, but you know, in a community, there's always the responsible and the irresponsible. And preserving the environment may not necessarily be the problem of the people in this room, but there are people who are not concerned about what's going on in this room right now. And those are the people that we have to reach out to and get them educated on what's needed.
Thank you.
I certainly agree with most of what's been said so far, but right now, we are living in a mess. We are living in a time when we have been neglectful for too many years. We have winter in spring, and we have summer in winter. We have atmospheric rivers coming across our nation. I thought that was a very interesting term, atmospheric rivers flowing in. It's all about ignorance. We have to stop tolerating ignorance, and we must tell people what we must do. We've got to save our world. We must save our climate. And it starts with our communities telling the truth and getting back to where we need to go. Are you willing to give up your disposable plates and go back to glass dishes and washing them? These are the trade-offs. Trash, garbage everywhere, disposable everything. And my time been up, but I just wanted to let you know that. Let's get on board and save the environment and save our world. If we started here, we can start a movement.
I'm going to go off script for a little bit because I want everyone in here to understand everything that you're hearing tonight 10 years ago, 18 years ago, 24 years ago, guess what? It's no secret. We could have done more. Why didn't you all do more? You had these questions before you. Why didn't you all come up with the solutions 4 years ago, 12 years ago, 10 years ago? So it's time for a change. It's time for us to take a look, do what we need to do, remove the people from office who have done absolutely nothing, and let's make this city what it should be. That's all we need to do. My family has been here for over 125 years, and I am so tired of listening to the same rhetoric that we hear all the time. We need to do this, we need to do that. Well, why haven't you all done that? It's that simple. Thank you.
The City of Winston-Salem has long been committed to sustainability. I was one of the first 300 mayors in the country to sign the Climate Protection Agreement. We have objectives to reduce our carbon emissions by 50% by the year 2030 and totally eliminate it by the year 2050. We are doing a lot already. We have our whole our fleet of transit vehicles is hybrid. We've got just entered into a contract with Duke Energy to replace 28,000 street lights with LEDs, which will be a major saving of energy. And we're slowly replacing our fleet because, as Ms. Adams mentioned, it's hard to get them right now. And what our objective is, we're going to set a good example as the City of Winston-Salem, and then bring other companies, organizations in, such as the Medical Center, Wake Forest University, Duke Energy, Haynes Brands have all joined us in this effort. So if the city's setting a good example, I think we'll get more and more people to participate.
Just give you a sense of where we are. We kind of want to be around 7:30 to 7:45, start moving out. We're going to need volunteers to help us with chairs. What I want to do is, I have 4 questions, but I'm going to call an audible candidates. We're going to take this one, give you 90 seconds. Give your wrist a rest. All right, ready? Community policing and building trust between law enforcement and residents are critical. How will you work towards strengthening the relationships between the police force and the community? And Mayor, I believe we're starting at your end and going the other way. Thank you.
Thank you. Community policing has been around a long time, obviously. We have a pretty good track record within the city of Winston-Salem. In order to do that properly, we're going to need to fill vacancies. We've got around 100, 120 vacancies right now. And unfortunately, we still have time to create those bonds. But we are making progress to bring in new officers, and we made improvements to our salaries and that sort of thing to make it more attractive to work here. Community policing does work. We've created a program called CURE, which is we're actually sending counselors into neighborhoods to work with particularly young people and teaching them ways to deal with anger and conflict without resulting in violence. We created a program called BEAR, which is behavioral and response, where we have counselors actually assigned to 7 fire stations, which can be dispatched sometimes with police department and sometimes by themselves to address mental health issues with individuals and trying to cut down on the negative interactions with police. So we are, as a city government, long-term commitment to community policing. Chief Penn is very committed to that and will be continuing to carry out new initiatives in that regard.
First of all, we have the lowest morale in the police department, the fire department, the sanitation department in the history of Winston-Salem. The reason we have that is because of the low wages. And we're not talking about just giving wages, upping the wages now. We're talking about years where our police department did not have the tools, the resources, the things that they need. The sanitation workers didn't have the equipment that they needed. That's why we have such an awful period of time right now that we've lost so many sanitation workers. We've had so many people retire. We've had our police department itself. How can we be short 200 officers? How? That's because they're retiring. They aren't being treated the way that they should be treated. So what we have to do is bring back morality. We gotta bring back that integrity. We gotta bring back those things so we can keep the best of the best. We've gotta make sure that we pay wages. And I'm not talking about just a living wage. We're talking about wages where people can actually live again. So all I'm going to say is that, we gotta take a look at everything up here. And those of you who know me know, I'm gonna call it like it is. We're gonna tell it like it is. And we're going to proceed with what we know. Thank you.
Too many of us want the police to solve problems in our community that we should be standing up to solve. Our young people, everybody, they're people who are poor, they're young people who aren't getting guided by adults, but we're looking for the police to solve that. We as a community, we as residents must take back our city and take back our children, take back our neighborhoods. We can't wait for policemen to come and do that. We must go back and learn to love each other again. And that's the biggest problem we have. We don't love each other anymore. We want to put everything out there for the police to do. It's not their job, but we've got to first start loving each other as we love ourselves. And if we do that, we will respect each other. We will talk to the children. We will talk to each other. We will help guide, we will help train, and we will help nurture. And who wants to live in a police state? I really don't. I want to live where I can walk comfortably around my neighborhood and love my neighbor and say good morning every morning, and they say that back. This is what we have to do as residents. So yes, we do need to have a police force, and they're doing a good job with what they have. But let's examine ourselves first and our role as residents and as citizens. And it's not your elected official's job to go back and dictate everybody's behavior. We have laws, and our police are to enforce just those laws.
And I want to expound on that also. What happens a lot of times is we contact law enforcement for gray area situations. And when you call police officers, you should be calling them for something in terms of law enforcement, not domestic problems as far as an argument with someone or something like that. You know, we need to find ways to do things on our own, fix our own homes, fix our own children, help them to understand that they don't need to be as sensitive about certain things in regard to the lawmen. I think that my generation and the generation after me have given a lot of young people the wrong idea about law enforcement. And on the reverse side, I think that a lot of times law enforcement, they don't sometimes do enough in terms of educating themselves on the people in those communities and trying to understand why they react a certain way. And we can't just continue to perpetuate those bad messages one way or another. So what we need to do is, again, first communicate with our young people, help them to understand that they don't need to be as sensitive. And again, with law enforcement, we just need to find a way to have them to understand what the needs are of the young people. I'm saying young people because we have a growing problem with young people really getting out of control, and they're misguided in a lot of ways. And I know a lot of people have taken away the what we used to call the spankings, you know. But you got to keep in mind, when you remove something, what are you going to do to put it in place for that absence? So if your idea is just, I'm just going to talk to my kid, well, the kid compartmentalizes that and says, well, I can break a window or break into a house. My mom and dad's just going to talk to me. And if that's their mindset, where's the consequence? Where's the fear? And I think that's what's happening now. They don't have a fear. When I say fear, healthy fear.
Thank you.
I think my answer is a little bit radical, and I want to start this with a disclaimer, because I'm a victim of the 1994 crime bill, a young person growing up in a project. I've experienced all of that. But I think when we look at over 130 jobs that's open in the city right now, I'm looking at an economic opportunity. If I don't want to get policed by people who don't look like me, who got implicit bias, I need to find ways to get these jobs to young black and brown people. And as a high school student, as a high school teacher, I got students who are working in the mall right now, post-grad. These are opportunities for them. They know the communities better than a lot of people. They know their friends. They can be better with the proper training that our police department have, with helping out this city. And so if you take 100 of those jobs and the pay raise, what, 48, 49,000, that's about 4 million jobs, $4 million that could be coming to the community annually if we start looking at this issue differently. Thank you.
Well, I would agree that we need to fill the vacancies. We need to increase our law enforcement's morale. We also need to ensure that we provide them with a livable wage. That's most definite. But we need more than anything are policemen who are in community, walking, talking, and learning of the people that they're to protect. But more than that, we need communities where people are not in deepening poverty, to whereby they disvalue themselves and each other. We need to be in the community and utilizing recreation centers to whereby policemen can build relationships, opportunities can be given to, parents can be supported if they're having a hard time with their children, and children that are at risk can be given the counsel or the support that they need to whereby they can find a new way. Everything begins in the community. We can pay policemen all the wages we want to. Their morale can be as high as it can get. But if they're not in community, And if resources are not in the community and the people are not being removed from the poverty and the stigma that attach to them, crime will probably continue on.
As was stated, we have a vacancy problem. The problem didn't happen overnight. This vacancy problem has been going on continuously for about 10 years. But Winston-Salem isn't alone. Every city, municipality, village, town has the same problem. And it's because nobody wants to be a policeman anymore. They are high risk. We don't have the same problem with public safety on fire side. We have it with police. One of the things that the city has been doing over the years, especially over the past 2 years, with the ARPA money and reinvestment money, is we've reinvested in programs in our community for our children, for our seniors, and others, particularly when it comes to behavior. Everybody knows that mental illness is real, but we are just now realizing that everybody will admit that they've had mental illness at some time in their life. I know that the police department and the WSPD, their morale, when we keep hearing people talk about how bad everything is, people start to believe how bad it is. Is poverty bad? Yeah. Do we need to do more? Yeah. Did we do that with investing a lot of ARPA money in programs in qualified census tracts? Yeah. I believe in community-oriented policing. But right now, we are priority policing, like every city in America. Anything that's unsafe, crimes, death, accidents, domestic abuse, child abuse, that's priority policing. Whenever we get the 120 plus vacancies filled and more, we'll be glad to put them back out in the community. But right now, we have to ensure that we try to keep all of you as safe as we can be. Thank you.
Well, I'm honored to say that I am the recipient of the Police Benevolence Association candidate. I am their candidate for the 2024 election. And getting that meant that I had to have a deep conversation with that organization. We were in understanding. They do understand that there is a vacancy issue, but there are reasons for those vacancies, and those have to be addressed. You have to make people want to be policemen again. You want them to stay. We have a great training for our policemen here in this city, but they take that training and they go other places where they can get paid more. They were consciously not paid more for years. Every year when you create a budget, you have to make decisions on what you're going to do with that money. And when you do not raise pay for your employees, you create an environment, and that environment is there. And playing catch up is going to be hard to do, even at the rate now. So we do need to fill those vacancies. Those policemen who need to be back in those communities, building those relationships, because that's where it's at. Building relationships. Building relationships changes mindsets. That's where it has to start. You can't govern up here and say, enforcing, you're gonna do. You have to build that relationship, build that trust. And then people will naturally want to do the things that they need to do. That's how it's done. And I do believe in the BEAR program. I hope that it is something that is funded again this year, because when I asked our sitting councilman, would she commit to that, I did not get an answer. You told me, I asked you if you would commit. I am not lying. I do a lot of things I don't lie. I asked you.
Eunice?
No, well, let me finish.
Well,
I asked you if you would commit to the BEAR.
Eunice,
You said.
Excuse me.
I'm just answering.
Excuse me, ma'am.
My time is up. I'm not lying, people.
Time and your.
My integrity, I stand on my integrity.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, here I go again. This is how I feel. Personally, when something happens in California with police officers, who gets the blame for it? All the way across the nation. So what they did in California is going to affect the police officers in Winston-Salem and in any other state as well. How do I know? Because that's what I retired from. So I know the ups, I know the downs, I know the sideways, I know all the all arounds. But when you look at retention for these police officers, you might want to take a harder look. Why are you losing 40 officers in 1 month or more? That's something that needs to be addressed. It's not that people don't want to be police, because some people truly love to help others. Some people love to be out there on the beat, getting to know the people in their community, because I was one of them. So I know what it's like to be out there. So don't sit there and blame it on things that it's really not. Oh, we need to hire more police. You need to figure out how to keep what they have here first, and then worry about hiring more police. Make it make sense. So why am I going to go and hire people when I got 10 leaving every day and 1 coming through the door? You're not even meeting what you're losing. So you need to find a way to level that out and get the retention here in order to make this community a safer community. More officers, the more safety that can be provided. Less officers, yeah, it's going to take them an hour to get to a call, and I respect that stop sign.
First of all, I want to say, since I've been on council, we have worked really hard to increase the pay of our police officers. We have worked really hard to show the value, the respect, the appreciation that we have for them. We have increased the incentives that were offered in the past to offer even more to attract officers to Winston-Salem and to retain the ones that we have. We cannot make someone decide to become an officer, but we're working hard to do the best that we can. I also want to give credit to Chief Penn. He is working diligently to build trusting relationships with our youth, with our seniors, with our citizens in Winston-Salem. And he has numerous initiatives and ideas and programs that he's working on right now along that line. I also want to say I'm proud of the decision that council made to put money toward the BEAR team, the Behavioral, Environmental, and Response team. That team is so crucial to Winston-Salem and to our police officers because they are called for everything, and they cannot do everything. They cannot put out every fire. And the BEAR team stands in place to receive these calls that are not life-threatening, they're not emergency calls. Many of our calls are just to de-escalate situations and bring everybody to a point of calm and understanding. So we're going to continue to do what we're doing, but we are doing all that we can. Thank you.
I think that community engagement is critical in building relationships with our police officers. We need more dialogue. We need more conversations. I was at an event, Courageous Conversations, with the police department and the sheriff's department, and it was an excellent dialogue. We need more of that. I think we need to understand the root causes of crime. And that root causes is poverty. You know, when you're suffering, when you are trying to figure out how to feed your family, you're gonna do it by any means possible. And so we gotta understand what's causing that and address that problem, the problem of poverty in our community. And lastly, I wanted to say that we need to be able to train our police officers to understand the mental health issues that our community is facing. We need more training in that. We need more training in trauma, resilience practices. We need to just be able to empower our community and our police officers by understanding the data that we have. We need more transparency and accountability and all of that. And so if we get to know what's going on in our communities, the data, if we get to share that with our community, we can feel safer and more secure in our lives. Thank you.
I too have the endorsement of the Police Benevolent Association of North Carolina. Getting more officers is all of our responsibility. We have to create an environment that attracts people to the profession. And we need them, and they won't get here unless we do it. It is a community obligation. It's a cousin of community policing. I would recommend, I've done something, maybe some others in this room have done, and that's ride along with the police. You sign up for driving in a car. We don't drive the car, the officer does, but you spend at least 4 hours with a police officer. You won't believe what you learn about what they're doing, what they're going through, how they communicate, how they work with each other, how they teamwork. It didn't take long for things to get exciting, in my experience. It probably will. You just don't know what's going to happen next. It is a very important experience for citizens to do. And it was certainly that way for me. I was impressed with teamwork, communication, how they worked with citizenry. We had encounters with homeless people. The way they treated the homeless was exactly the way they would treat people in this room. So I highly recommend doing that. You become informed, and I think I'll come to understand more about what it takes to get more people into law enforcement in Winston-Salem.
Regina Hall, Northwest Ward. I would agree in saying that ride-alongs are great, although my ride-along was not as exciting. But ride-alongs are great. I did not get the endorsement from PBA, but my concern is getting the endorsement of citizens of the Northwest Ward on March 5th. I will say that I do also appreciate the BEAR team. I don't think often enough that we talk about mental health and the correlation between mental health and crime and safety in Winston-Salem. And so I am appreciative of the city for incorporating that and making sure that officers have a sensitivity when responding to crimes that are involving folks with mental illness. As a co-chair of our neighborhood watch, I will say that I know that there are already programs in place where officers build relationships with residents, and I think that that's great. Oftentimes y'all see that on Neighborhood Watch Night, National Night Out. But I also believe that there is importance in being able to touch base with folks who have been incarcerated, have paid their debt to society, and have come home. We have that with the SOAR program, of course, with the city, we appreciate that. But there are folks who are saying, hey, I made some bad decisions. I am home now. I'm going from worst to first. And I'm ready to be able to work alongside members of the community to make sure that we decrease crime. And so I will say that I think that making sure we build off of those, and the city continues to fund community programs that express that interest in keeping crime down.
Thank you. So there's been some great answers already, so I'm going to focus on a few new ideas that haven't been touched. First, we can use our affordable housing trust fund that the mayor mentioned earlier and guarantee affordable housing for new hires at the police department and other integral city departments, so that they would pay a mortgage based on their salary. So if you're just getting out of the police academy and you're starting a new job, hey, you can buy a house and it's only going to be 30% of your salary. We can do that if we're funding and underwriting the loans. Next, I recommend restorative justice programs at our high schools and in our jails, so that we can teach people conflict resolution, and when issues come up, they can work it out themselves in a peaceful and loving manner. Ms. Scipio, thank you so much for the pitch for love in our neighborhoods. I think that's right on point. And then lastly, I recommend a reparations commission like the city of High Point is undertaking, so that we can identify and name historic injustices, and maybe that will lead to a little bit of increased trust, and our community policing would have a better handle on it. Thank you.
Carolyn Highsmith, South Ward. I have been in neighborhood watch for the last 15 plus years in South Winston-Salem. I'm also a graduate of the Citizens Police Academy, and I have actually worked with a fully staffed police department who was actually doing community police partnerships on the ground in Winston-Salem. Realpolitik, that is not an option right now. You only have enough, we are at such a historically understaffed place in our police department that you can only get a police officer to respond with a valid 911 call. All your quality of life issues that come through the non-emergency call lines with communication dispatchers, they do not, you will not get a police officer to respond for that. If you do, it may be 1 hour or 2 hours. So how are we going to change that? Well, we need more, we're going to have to use more non-sworn city personnel to take up the slack for some of these quality of life issues. And one of that is fully funding the Bear Team project, which is running successfully 24/7 as a line item budget. It can't be just grant funded because it can always be stopped. And we need more neighborhoods and citizens to step up because if you don't know who is in your neighborhood and who your neighbors are for crime prevention, we're already at a loss. So more neighborhood watch groups and more citizen participation. Thank you.
So the mayor talked about BEAR and CURE, and those are really good programs that need to be fully funded, and I don't think anyone at the table would disagree with that. But the first word was community. As Carolyn just said, you gotta know your neighbors. Community first. Community is what is necessary to make this happen. You need to know who your neighbors are. You need to come out of your house. You need to talk to your neighbors. You need to go down the street and around the corner. I'm not from here, but where I come from, when I was growing up, I knew the neighbors 10, 15 doors down the block. Not only did I know them, I knew their habit. So I might not have spoken with them every day, but you knew when something was wrong. In our neighborhood, we know our neighbors. And if nothing else happened good during the pandemic, I think we all learned the necessity of going outside your door and knowing what's directly, immediately around you. I know downtown, I work on Trade Street. My partner is born and raised in Winston-Salem. Her grandmother used to call it the Buzzard Roost. Trade Street is not that anymore. But I come outside my front door, on my stoop, in my business, and I talk to whoever's coming through. So if they're not supposed to be, they keep going. Because you know what? Trouble needs a place to plant. We are the community policing. Not some vigilante thing. It's just us. And the person, male or female, that has a badge and a gun, they're our partner. But if we don't do it, why would we expect someone else to come in our house and do it for us?
All right, thank you.
Whether it's a domestic, I need to be able to talk about my own argument, and you need to help me solve it.
Thank you. We're going to work on that with you. We're going to move to the next question. Thank you. So we have 10 to 15 minutes. We're going to go back to 45-second time limit. And this was the second question, the one that I pulled earlier. How do you intend to address the ongoing issues related to affordable housing and homelessness while working to prevent the displacement and gentrification in vulnerable communities in Winston-Salem? And Vivian, you're actually starting us. We're coming up down this way.
So there are some programs already on the books with the city to address rehabbing houses, keeping neighborhoods as they are, and making them affordable. We need to make those programs more accessible and to flush them out to create more housing for. We need to do that. There are some properties that do need to be demolished. There's some empty houses, they need to come down. But you can bring back more housing in that same space. There's some houses that simply need to be rehabbed. We need multifamily housing. We have to do a lot of different things in the space that we have.
Carolyn Heisman, South Ward. Some housing suggestions moving forward. We need to utilize city-owned land or housing through the housing trust that they're trying to get off the board. We need city-supported cooperative housing or communal housing, especially for homelessness. I mean, why are we pushing one encampment camp from South Winston-Salem to Southeast and not have some sort of areas throughout the city where we can have utilities, running water, et cetera, for our homeless folks. We need to create a renter's bill of rights. We need to establish a city-owned low-income multi-housing. And with adequate transit. So there are multiple interventions that we can do, that we need to work together and collaborate together at both the city and private level. Thank you.
All right, so there's a number of issues here. We need to develop permanent supportive housing. I know the city's looking at this, but we need to kind of light a fire under that and get housing for the homeless population so that then they can work on whatever other issues they're facing. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund needs to be at least $100 million. I can help the city raise that money from banks with their CRA funding, local endowments, pension funds, etc. And we need to fund that yearly through fees on new housing development and market rate. We need to create a development office in the city so that developers have a central place to go when they want to build a house or a housing development. And we need to use the Inflation Reduction Act to weatherize homes throughout Winston-Salem to lower utility rates, leading to long-term affordability. I'm already working on this with the County Rehabilitation Office and the Housing Authority of Winston-Salem, which will save our tenants millions of dollars a year. Thank you.
This is a bit layered. I am interested in seeing what the Housing Trust Fund will be with the city of Winston-Salem. I know that there are additional talks about community land trust and making sure that homes are affordable and kept affordable for several years. That's also a way to keep properties affordable and safe and free of gentrification. I think that they need to be community benefit agreements that are made up between the city and the developers that come into the city and are doing new housing in neighborhoods, particularly ones that are at risk of gentrification. I do think that there could be additional dollars that are placed and given to property owners to rehab their homes for some of those critical repairs, and making sure that they stay accountable to that. Oftentimes you have renters that are living in homes, and they just are in need of critical repairs, and I think that the city can place some funds towards that so we can get them better.
I've advocated for a municipal bond issue for this. I don't believe we're going to make it unless we do that. We know what we need to do. We know what the issues are. We've heard a lot about them from people up here tonight. I mentioned the city of Durham's $95 million bond issue exclusively for housing issues. It's a big success. There's lots of construction going on. There's construction and housing for the homeless. So I don't have enough time to tell you all the features of it, but you can check it out. They did something that's really big, and they're in the housing business seriously in the city of Durham. We should do that here too. We need that resource. We're talking about all these different places that we're going to draw funds from. We're still not going to make it, in my view, unless we undertake this municipal bond.
I think that we need certainly affordable housing, producing new housing. We need that in every income level. But we also need to preserve our existing housing stock. We are demolishing way too many houses. We're losing way too much stock. And so we can preserve that, and we can help people who are at 30%, 50% of average median income in order to find safe and decent housing for them. We also need to look at historic preservation, and some of our neighborhoods can be preserved. We can get tax incentives to rehab them, and we need to look at that. We also need a neighborhood advocate that can work with neighborhoods and help them as they try to solve their own problems and work to help shape our future.
My plan is to continue to do exactly what I have been doing. I'm gonna go back up to the corner of Old Walkertown Road and Motor Road. We still have many more acres to develop. I've already, as I said, partnered with Winfield Development to create 216 multifamily housing units. My plan for phases 2 and 3 will be to add additional housing, senior housing, so the opportunity to have 500 to 600 housing opportunities up there exist. Additionally, as I said, I have a pot of money that we have been able to give to owner-occupied residents east of Cleveland to improve the facade of their homes. I'm working right now with our neighborhood housing services department to identify even more so that we can go inside the home. Many of our owner-occupied residents need money to make repairs to their air conditioning units, their heating units. They need money to do the work on the inside, so we're looking for opportunities for that as well. Also, I told you about the properties, the city-owned properties, 1635 North Cleveland, 1200 Willie Davis. We have $750,000 designated to completely renovate and rehab those units. I asked council and they supported me to keep the rent exactly where it was through 2024. Recently, in December, we had another vote and we decided to keep it exactly where it is again through 2025. That is what my plan is. Thank you.
Of course, I have an answer for that. Well, I had done a little research on the topic of homelessness because I'm very passionate about that. And I read an article where California started a small tiny home community for the homeless. Started small and ended up big. It doesn't have to be a permanent fix, but being homeless is just like being a prisoner out of jail. Nobody wants to give you a chance. These people will have to be taught how to manage finances, how to re-enter the workforce, and everything. So basically, getting them housing, getting them off the street is a win-win situation because eventually they're going to become positive people in the community. And I'm going to stop before I get stopped.
When me and my husband bought our home 28, 29 years ago, our salaries together may have been right around $50,000, and I'm giving it, you know. We have young couples out here today that want a home who are making about that today. We've got to find a way to make that happen for them. So we need low-income housing. When we say affordable, affordable is subjective. But let's be honest, we live in a high poverty area. We need low income housing. And we need to start thinking about reimagining or rethinking about how we look at the homeless population. Because anybody at any time you know could be homeless. So we need to prepare for that and just change our mindset on it. Because if you don't know it or not, there was a time in my life when I was homeless.
Thank you.
In 2009-10, I did my first affordable or income-based housing project as a council member in the North Ward, the Enclave. We did phase 1 and we did phase 2, and there's been a waiting list of thousands ever since. I have worked on I told you, the Community Development Housing Committee since I've been on the council. The mayor and I are working in together collaboration. We visited Charlotte, Guilford, Durham, Asheville to discuss what they've done with their housing trust. I got the housing studies, 3 of them for the city, just so my council and the citizens could see that we have a problem with housing. I'm hoping that you will re-elect me, because Dee Dee does get stuff done.
45 seconds. Lord help me. Ooh. Well, I'm gonna say this: when it comes to homelessness, we need to create more wraparound programs for them. We need to have more than one city employee that's out going into homeless camps. We need our nonprofits to work collaboratively to whereby they can provide the services for them. When it comes to creating more affordable housing, we need to increase the set aside as it relates of 65% from 20% for them and 30%
May I have your attention, please? The library will be closing in 30 minutes. If you wish to check out materials, please do so at this time. Thank you.
Is it back? Okay. Okay. Well, we need to increase that set aside for those at 30% from 20%, 30% of the area median income from 20% to 30%. Also, when it comes to gentrification, we have to remember, gentrification is the byproduct of opportunity zone funding. That's where community benefit agreements can progress.
I didn't do that.
Community benefit agreements can rest where opportunity zone funding is done to provide entrepreneurship assistance to community buildings and businesses and the community at large in many different ways. So there's so much we need to do.
Teacher voice. A lot of great ideas. One of the best that I heard came from Councilwoman Adams, who proposed a housing summit. But I think that housing summit doesn't just need to be led by the city of Winston-Salem or council members. I think it needs to include stakeholders and community members, community organizations that already do the work, and get a lot of these good ideas into the same space so we can talk about how to properly do this together. Thank you.
Okay. When I did my introduction, I told you I was a change agent. So what that means is that for me, I worked in the field of drug and alcohol rehabilitation as a therapist for 20 years, and later on went to get a doctoral degree in sports psychology. But during my time working with the homeless, here's the issue. The homeless are like you and I. They are choosy. They don't want restrictions. They don't want to be just placed anywhere. I used to feel like I was doing a great job, and I found this housing for this person. They looked at it as if I was showing them the worst place in the world, but I felt good because they had a roof over their head. So what we have to do is just have catchment areas. And once you have those catchment areas, then you can do actual assessments on each individual that goes to those catchment areas. And you can determine what their capabilities are and what their interests are and exactly what it is that they like to do. And if they're invested, you can actually find out if they have any family that they've just been estranged from. You know, we can make it a community thing. And that's the way you go about helping that type of situation. So it's need to stop there.
Last time I looked, everything I buy has gone up. If I look what I paid for when I was 25 versus what I'm paying for now, even a bag of sugar has gone up. 5 pounds used to be 25 cents. And now it went up to $1.49, and now they don't even do 5-pound bags. They reduced it to 4-pound bags. So what we have to understand is that things will continue to increase. What we have to do is encourage people to go after better jobs and higher paying jobs. And that would take care of, they'll be able to afford what they want. So we've got to work towards that end of getting incomes up so people can afford to live in good housing. I'm gonna say this, don't misinterpret me. We must start having a zero tolerance for homelessness. All of the major shelters are now in the East Ward. And what I mean by that is the face of homelessness is changing. I have been told that one of our shelters was dealing with one of our city employees. Families displaced. Working people are losing their homes. We have to have a zero tolerance for homeless. That means we must do everything to prevent families from becoming homeless, whatever that takes.
Thank you, Nick.
First of all, let me just say this. I have visited every housing homeless shelter from the coast of North Carolina to the mountains. So I can tell you about homelessness. But the problem is that what we do and what has been done, we keep trying to do something about the symptoms. We're trying to fix the symptoms instead of fixing the causation. And this is why we can't get anywhere, because we keep trying to put a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. You're not going to get anywhere with that. So when it comes to housing, and we've been talking about housing for a very long time. I started back in 2010, coming before the city council. We talked about all of these different things, and I'm gonna take one extra 10 seconds, if you don't mind, so that you can understand how important this is. You all know about this. You didn't just, just say, oh gosh, here we are. No, we could have done things years ago, over a decade ago. We had enough money in the city budget that we could have renovated every dilapidated house in Winston-Salem. And we could have taught them a trade, the people who were on the streets. So yes, this is very personal for me, and I take this very, very serious. That don't tell me about what we could have done all these years.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you.
Let me tell you what we have done. 2 years ago, I went to the city council and asked them to set aside $30 million for affordable housing development and create a goal of 750 units per year. Well, that first year we did 450 houses, but last year we did over 1,000. But guess what? We've used up just about all of that $30 million. So that's the reason I'm so passionate about creating this new housing trust fund that's funded by contributions or investments from the private sector. And we're already getting some traction on that already. During the pandemic, we ran a very, very effective program to prevent eviction. So we know how to do it. Again, we just need some dollars to go with it there. And we've got to make sure that our building code, housing code, is not putting undue cost into the cost of building a house, but doing it, but not impacting the safety of the individual. So we know how to do it. And I'll say also, the PBA, Police Benevolent Association also endorsed me.
And that wraps up our questions for the evening. Tremendous applause for all.
I just have a couple of announcements before we start stacking up the chairs. I'd like to thank our second vice chair of the county party, Francis Pimentel, for video taping this. And our intrepid timekeeper, Sue Ann Langford, is the treasurer of the county party. I'm the secretary of the county party, Pat Eisenach. And I don't know if we introduced Julie Puckett. She's the newly elected Louisville Town Council person. Julie, thanks so much. And Doug Auer, our 10th District Chair.
Thank you all for being here this evening, for coming out to support our candidates, and thank you to the candidates for sharing. A couple of things before you leave. We do have another forum that will be occurring next Monday. That's the North Carolina Senate and House, the County Commissioner, the Register of Deeds, and the District Court Judge that will be here at the Central Library. A couple of reminders. We do need some volunteers that might be willing to help us with the chairs. Our candidates need your help. When you leave, please don't don't just leave what you've heard here, but think about the ways that you can continue to support them. One of those is to access the QR codes for any campaign donations. And please remember, everyone, we are Democrats. We are the party that stands together, not apart. We focus on moving forward. What has been done is great, but we focus on moving forward and what we still can do. So let's stand together. Thank you.